A very warm welcome to all our viewers and welcome to a new edition of Africa Today, our program that brings you all the latest news happening inside the Black Continent. My name is Angie Maher and I'll be joining you, and we begin straight away with a look at the news making the headlines. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli agreed with South Sudan's Irrigation Minister Manawa Peter on forming a joint high committee with Egypt, as well as to start coordinating with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to hold the committee's first meeting in Cairo before the end of this year. We have more details in this report.
During a meeting with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli on Monday, South Sudan's Irrigation Minister convened his country's appreciation of Egypt's support to the people of South Sudan during the flood crisis. He also thanked Egypt for launching an air bridge during the crisis to transport to South Sudan important humanitarian aid. He affirmed Egypt's effort to support South Sudan came in light of the brotherly relations between the two peoples. The meeting was attended by Egyptian Minister of Irrigation and Water Resources Mohammed Abdulati. Torrential rain and floods earlier this year hit South Sudan and submerged many villages and livestock and displaced over 600,000 people since July. The floods were described by the UN as the worst in 16 years. The South Sudanese minister also praised Egypt's establishment of technical schools in South Sudan that have qualified students for the job market. The South Sudanese minister said he wants to enhance cooperation with Egypt and to benefit from the Egyptian experience and distinguished cadres in capacity building and the establishment of the Egyptian investment projects in agriculture, irrigation, electricity and other infrastructure fields. The minister also requested that Egypt opens a branch of one of its banks in South Sudan. Prime Minister Madbouli affirmed during the meeting that Egypt will spare no effort to support South Sudanese people in the fields mentioned by the minister, mainly supporting South Sudanese students in Egypt based on President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's directives to support foreign students residing in the country. Madbouli also expressed Egypt's willingness to establish investment projects needed in South Sudan. The Prime Minister also urged coordination with Egyptian Foreign Ministry to accelerate efforts to form the Joint High Committee to hold its first meeting in Cairo before the end of this year.
And for more news making the headlines, the President of the African Union and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said that new negotiations around the Ethiopian dam will resume on Tuesday with the participation of all the three countries, Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia. We have the details in this report.
Egypt and Sudan have confirmed that they will be participating in revived trilateral talks with Ethiopia as proposed by the African Union chairman over the disputed Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam GERD after nearly 7 weeks of deadlock. The GERD negotiations will resume following a 7-week hiatus due to a persistent failure to reach a binding deal on the filling and operation of the dam. The Egyptian Irrigation Ministry said in a statement that Egypt is ready to seriously negotiate in order to reach a fair and balanced agreement that preserves the three nations' interests. Tuesday's meeting is part of the implementation of the outcomes of the AU Bureau's meeting held in mid-August, during which the three countries were called to negotiate in order to reach a legal binding deal. And in televised statements later on Monday, the Irrigation Minister's spokesman said that Egypt decided to participate in the talks given that it has responded to all calls of reconciliation since the onset of the dam negotiations. He also stressed that legal and technical differences still persist. And Sudan also confirmed on Monday that it will participate in the talks proposed by the AU chair, stressing that the different framework of negotiations is required to resolve the dispute. The observers would have a bigger and more effective role in pushing negotiations forward and helping converge viewpoints between the three countries. Egypt pulled out of talks in late August after the three countries failed to reach a consensus on the legal and technical points of contention after Ethiopia proposed a package of non-binding guidelines for the filling and operation of the mega dam. The GERD, built 15 kilometers from the Ethiopian border with Sudan, has been a source of contention between the three countries since its construction began in 2010. Cairo fears the massive hydropower project will significantly cut its crucial water supplies from the River Nile, while Sudan fears it could endanger the safety of its own dams.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by our guest for this afternoon, Dr. Raouf Ghaffar, the political analyst. It's a very good afternoon to you, Doctor.
Good afternoon to you, my
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Now, Egypt and South Sudan have agreed to establish a joint high committee which will hold its first meeting before the end of this year. Could you tell us a bit more about the concerns of this committee and why it is important to form it, in your opinion?
First of all, we have to know that Egypt has been always for the stability and the welfare of South Sudan.
Yes,
and
indeed.
We all remember when there was this conflict between the different tribes and factions, and Egypt played a huge role to bring the people together and sort of impose peace and security all over the territory of South Sudan.
Mm-hmm.
So the relation goes back to the day where when South Sudan got its independence, etc. And this continues. And we have seen a lot of, projects going on, a lot of consultations, a lot of talks, visits, particularly from the leaders of South Sudan to Egypt, etc., etc. And finally, we received the Minister of Irrigation from South Sudan, and as you rightly said, we decided, both countries, of course, to enter into a new phase of cooperation by forming the committee. Egypt has expressed its interest and keenness to establish infrastructure projects, to invest through the branch of one of the major banks, Egyptian banks in Juba, and start giving the assistance that is expected from an elder sister. So this is going on. Of course, we are working together for the cleansing of the Nile stream, to ensure a better navigation and to control the floods and what have you. When they had problems with the heavy rains and floods, Egypt was the first to help with all the supplies and medical equipment, etc., etc. We have a new initiative as well from our president to help them overcome the virus C, hepatitis C, and there is a big delegation, medical delegation, that is there for this purpose. So, I mean, as you rightly said, we are entering a new phase of relations. We are strengthening the ties between the two countries, and we are working together for the benefit of both countries.
Indeed. Doctor, now, how strategic, in your opinion, and important is South Sudan as an African partner to Egypt?
Well, South Sudan, I mean, it's extension of Sudan, and we consider Sudan a geographic and strategic extension of the national security of Egypt.
Yes.
So security of this area is very much the security of Egypt. And we know that South of Sudan is neighboring 7 or 8 different African states, among which, of course, Ethiopia, Sudan, Kenya, etc. And it is very much one of the Nile Basin countries, important countries of the Nile Basin. So there are a lot of common interests between the two countries, and it is very important to keep at all times deep and strategic relations with South Sudan. And this is exactly what the directives of our president and the views of our president to strengthen the relations with neighboring countries, of course, as a first priority, and African countries in general.
Indeed. Doctor, let me ask you, what kind of projects do you believe Egyptian investors would be interested in investing in or pouring in their money in South Sudan? And are there already these projects on the ground or have they not yet been established?
As I said earlier, we are helping them, of course, in any projects related to the Nile, first of all. But I think that in the near future, we should see some projects being realized, particularly in agriculture, for instance, as I said, irrigation, helping them to build their infrastructure as far as electricity is concerned, and other different infrastructure projects. So, I mean, I think that they need our help, they need our expertise in a lot of development projects, sustainable development projects. And as I said, Egypt will be there for the infrastructure, and then probably the investments will cover a big range of projects, as I said, maybe irrigation, agriculture, etc.
Absolutely. Dr. Raouf, do you see Egypt and Sudan as having the same views regarding the continent's regional issues related to the relationship between the countries?
100%. 100%. I mean, it is to the best interest of Egypt to establish as good a relation as possible with all African states, and I am sure this again is the conviction of the leaders in South Sudan and North of Sudan. I mean, Sudan as a whole, to still keep very good relations, first with their neighbor countries and with the other African states in the same time. And they are always looking forward to benefit from the experience that Egypt has in different fields, and to make sure that they get it to improve and upgrade their countries.
Absolutely. Let's talk a bit on a political side here. What is your take on Cairo's role, especially in regards to mediating a peace deal in South Sudan between the warring sides, as well as neighboring Sudan?
First of all, as we all know, the south of Sudan had a huge problem, having so many ethnic groups and so many tribes, and it was very difficult to get them together and to form one central government that will rule the whole territory. And this took a lot of effort from Egypt to bring them together and talk to different factions, and finally, after years and years of conflicts and peace and then war and then peace and then civil war, finally an agreement was reached between the two major factions, but again with the approval and the signature of all other factions to sit together, work a formula by which South of Sudan will enjoy stability and security and peace. Same goes to the north of Sudan. Again, they had a lot of internal conflict, and that reached maybe the level of civil wars. But thanks to the Egyptian intervention, lately everything was put on the right track, and the last agreement was signed maybe a few weeks ago between the two major fighting, I should say, forces, and I think that Sudan will see an era of stability and security, which will enable this country, this rich country, mind you, with different resources, to achieve its goal in development.
Absolutely. Dr. Raouf Ghaffar, our political analyst and our guest for this afternoon. I'd like to thank you very, very much, sir, for joining us and for all your insight on today's edition of Africa Today. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up today's episode. We do hope you have enjoyed it. My name is Angie Meher. Many thanks for watching.